Council, Monday, March the 18th, 2019 at 2 p.m. in Council Chambers. So we will call the meeting to order, and first up is the adoption of some minutes, the Committee of the Whole minutes of March the 4th, and the regular open minutes of March the 4th. So could I have a motion, please, to adopt those? Thank you. Councillor Rhodes, Councillor Bennett, all in favour. Thank you. And no business arising from past minutes. And introduction of late items. Anything else, Mrs. Hilton? Okay, thank you. So could we have a motion, please, to adopt the agenda as printed? Thank you, Councillor Rhodes, Councillor King, all in favour. Thank you. And no delegations. So first up, we have some water matters, and this would be Water Districts 8 and 9 financial accounts, and to report on expenditures for accounts payable for water councillors and council approval. So the Water District cash requirements to March the 18th are in the amount of $4,870.99. Thank you. You don't have your sign in front of you. What's happened to it?
That's okay.
Councillor Moreras moving that, Councillor Rhodes seconding that. All in favour. Thank you very much. And next is the Okanagan Basin Water Board. And I just wanted to point out that one of the things that, this is the highlights of the last meeting, so the Don't Move a Muscle and mussel monitoring, and we had Lisa Scott, who came in invasive species, South Okanagan, Okanagan's Milkamine Invasive Species Society came and spoke to us. And in what there's two different kinds of mussels, and there was something on, I think it was Castanet the other day about mussels. I just wanted people to realize that we do not have zebra quagga mussels in any of the lakes in BC, and we have our fingers crossed that we won't. But what they are talking about are the Rocky Mountain Ridge mussels that are native to the lakes. They're quite a bit bigger than the zebra quagga, and they are endangered. And they're not a problem mussel, but the concern is right now that the milfoil harvester, which has been harvesting weeds for the last 30 years, certainly along the edge of the lakes to allow swimmers and boaters to have better access. They have been asked to slow down and not go in some areas because the ridge mussels don't seem to be as prolific as they used to be, and so the milfoil harvester may have to slow down and deal with the provincial government before we can get going on that again. So it's a bit tricky. Fortunately, most of our lake is frozen and we don't have to deal with that issue yet, but certainly in other lakes up and down the valley, that has become an issue. So if you read about that, just realize that the Rocky Mountain Ridge mussels are about this big, and the zebra quagga are tiny, and those are the ones we don't want, okay, in the lake. So environmental flow needs, the determining water needs of fish and aquatic habitat, there was a report on that. The groundwater licensing deadline, I think you probably heard that that people with their own wells are supposed to register with the provincial government, and really it's for your own protection in case somebody who lives in the property beside you puts in a well, and all of a sudden you don't have as much water as you used to, and you didn't tell anybody that you had it there. So it's important to register that, and they have extended that to 2022, I think it is, because not very many people had registered. That was why. And the water grant approvals, the Water Conservation and Quality Improvement Grant Program will be decided at our next meeting, and they've had a lot of people interested in that. So that's just an update on the Okanagan Basin Water Board. Could we have a motion, please, to receive it and file it?
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor King, Councillor Bennett, all in favor. Thank you very much. And Next is the Wastewater Management and Regulations Amendment Bylaw. Mr. Zackel.
Thank you, Member Kordoff. So before Council's Waste Management Service and Regulations Amendment Bylaw 1309-2019. This is coming before Council for adoption. This bylaw received first 3 readings at the regular open meeting of Council on March 4th, 2019, and is now being before Council for consideration of adoption. This bylaw was established to set regulations for services to collect and dispose of solid waste and recyclable materials within the town of Osoyoos and for materials accepted at the Osoyoos Sanitary Landfill. The cost for recycling tire rims has increased from $1 to $3 per rim. A few minor amendments have been made to the bylaw to reflect this increase to be able to recover the costs associated with tire recycling and include tire with rims, the rate increasing from $1 up to $3, oversized tires increasing from $250 to $500, and this is also to be consistent with the RDOS rates charged at their landfills. And with implementing these changes, there should be little change in the net operating revenues. In addition, a minor change has been made to the recyclable gypsum board, increasing the rate from $105 per ton to $110 per ton, as well to be consistent with the RDOS landfills. So implications under community, continued effort for waste diversion at the Osoyoos Sanitary Landfill to extend the lifespan for residents. Organizationally, no changes required. Budget, minimal change. Under significant dates, bylaw needs to be adopted prior to rates coming into effect. Sustainability, continued effort for protecting the environment, reduction of waste, and financial sustainability. Options before Council to adopt Waste Management Service and Regulation Amendment Bylaw 1399.05, 2019. Option 2 to rescind third reading and make further changes to Waste Management Service Regulations Amendment Bylaw 1309.05, 2019 and reread for a third time. And option 3 to maintain existing Waste Management Service and Regulations Amendment Bylaw 1309.04, 2018 at this time. And the recommendation before Council is option number 1. This assists with the increased cost of the tire recycling.
Thank you very much. Council? Thank you. Councillor Rhodes?
Thank you, Member Kordoff. I'll move the staff recommended option number 1.
Thank you. Councillor King is seconding that. This has gone through first, second, and third reading, so it's just a matter of adopting it. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Next is the Museum Parcel Tax Amendment Bylaw. Mr. Zackel.
Thank you, Member Kordoff. So this one's Museum Parcel Tax Amendment Bylaw 1300.04, 2019. In 2011, the Regional District of Okanagan-Smilkameen adopted the Osoyoos Museum Service Establishment Bylaw 2553 for Electoral Area A and the Town of Osoyoos, which received elector assent on the 5th of June 2011. The referendum in 2011 stated that the annual cost would be allocated as a flat charge to all taxable properties in the Electoral Area A and Town of Osoyoos. This bylaw was established to enable the purchase of the future museum property currently occupied by Osoyoos home builders. A parcel tax bylaw was created in 2013 in order for the town of Osoyoos to collect the portion owing to the RDOS for the service. The RDOS requisitions the town annually and establishes the parcel tax rate to be charged. The town needs to annually update their parcel tax bylaw to ensure the rate is consistent with the rate being charged for the Area residents. 2019 rate established for Osoyoos is $14.61. And attached I have the requisition from the RDOS, which shows Osoyoos and Area Museum land and building acquisition for debt servicing, where Town of Osoyoos pays $58,052 and Electoral Area A pays $18,538. So Amendment Bylaw 1300.04, 2019 is being brought forward for Council's consideration. So implications under community. The electors of the Electoral Area A and Town of Osoyoos approved the borrowing of the funds for the future location of the museum. Under budget, sets the parcel tax bylaw to the rate established by the RDOS for the museum parcel tax requisition. Significant dates, bylaw needs to be adopted no later than May 15, 2019. Sustainability, this bylaw allows for the collection of funds required to pay for the town's portion of the annual debt payments for the museum property. And options before Council to give first 3 readings to Museum Parcel Tax Amendment Bylaw 13.04, 2019. Option 2 to maintain existing Bylaw 1300.03, 2018. And a recommendation before council is option number 1. This keeps a rate charge consistent between the RDOS and town for 2019.
Thank you, Mr. Zackel. Council, what's your pleasure here on this one? Councillor King?
Yeah, I'll move option number 1 to give first 3 readings to the museum. Parcel tax amendment bylaw 1300.04/219.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Bennett? I just had one question. I think this was, is this a 20-year borrowing that we have?
Yes,
How
it
many
is.
years have we, do you remember?
I think we're into year 5.
Okay, so we've got another, yeah, well, thank you very much. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you very much. And next is the 5-year financial plan bylaw. Mr. Zackel again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. So before council's 5-year financial plan bylaw 1349.2019, this bylaw received first 3 readings at the regular open meeting of council on March 4th, 2019. And at this time, council will allow for the public to provide input into the financial plan prior to council consideration of adoption. Section 165 of the Community Charter requires municipalities to prepare a financial plan for a period of 5 years, which is adopted annually by bylaw. The Charter also requires council to undertake a process of public consultation regarding the proposed financial plan before it's adopted. A number of budget meetings were held to discuss the 2019 to 2023 budget. At a special open budget meeting of council on December 18, 2018, council reviewed the 2019 to 2023 budget package. Amendments were made to the budget package and revised package was made available for the January 30th, 2019 special open budget meeting of council to seek input from the community on the budget document and for considerations into the budget. Council reviewed the request made at the February 19th, 2019 regular meeting of council and provided direction to staff. The information in the financial plan reflects those directions as attached. So at this point in time, Mayor McCordoff, I'll pass this over to you.
Thank you very much. So it has been stated in here that Mr. Zackel said that we would now entertain some public input into this financial plan. If someone would like to, or more than one would like to speak to the financial plan, we will allow you to please come up to the microphone, state your name and your address, and there's a 5 minutes. We will allow 5 minutes to do that. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this? Mr. Marcelli.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Councillor, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Simon Marcelli, Council Watchdog, 8301 Queens Lane, Osiris. Madam Mayor, you stated 5 minutes. That's not enough time. In my view, if it was a democracy to prevail and to thrive, we should have special meeting for budget. Not only 5 minutes that we could respond. But anyway, as I went through the budget books, few pages, as it says, project implementation by True Consulting, which he does engineering and planning, and yet we have so many planners in our payroll. And engineering cost, and these are the contingency included. Page 72, 51,495, engineering and contingency. Page number 3, 80,000 plus. Page 18, 250,000 as well. That's a part A, and 257,000 part B. This is a net engineering, not contingency. Page 133, 30,000. Page 148, 67,980. Page 156, 20,000. And the project cost about 110,000. It was reported 10,000. It was only typo. So project total is 110,000. Page 163, 23,000 only engineering, contingency 29,000. This is the proper way to and transparent, because contingency and engineering should not be lump sum like 30% or 25%, just the way it was set allowance, because there is not enough information. Now, most important, page 168, 663,895 engineering and contingency for west of Highway 97. Now again, same page, 168, 615,700 engineering and contingency for east of Highway. Total cost that we are paying mostly goes of this amount to engineering to true consultant, $1,980,095. And total project cost without engineering and contingency allows is 15 million plus. Now, Madam Mayor and Councillor, there is information on these ones. In meanwhile, there is no information about engineering cost, which is over 1,335,000. And it's not including engineering. So it's about time that we, as a town of Osayos, to have a planner, engineering payroll. And to all this year I've been saying that to back it, my claimants, I'm quoting Mr. George Cao Report, and he's expert on municipality. He knows inside out. And about operation services, it says primary objective like initiating succession planning for director role, considering opportunity to hire professional engineer. Primary objective should be to hire an experienced, competent operations manager. Secondary objective should be to hire a professional civil engineer as the director in order to in-house do some engineering activities and appropriately manage an engineering technician. Current engineering consulting costs are very high. He quoted $500,000 to $600,000 to true consultant, and I would like to be on the record, as I have evidence proven and facts from town of Osayos, which cost me 50 cents per page. We spent millions. Past example, 2008, 2010 and 11, 996,000 and 885,000. Just for 2 years, how many engineers we could hire. So please, now we are going to spend over 25 million. And second thing, we are buying lands for over $1 million, 400,000, and then 500,000. In meanwhile, what we have is, Madam Mayor, we have a parking lot just across. All this year collecting weeds. We paid through consultant good money. Nobody is parking. Why not? Why are we keeping as a decoration? Yeah, that's the page. Page 47 is 500,000, and page 46, 400,000 for land. So it's about time, Madam Mayor, Councillor, look after taxpayers. Elections are every 4 years comes, we are getting empty promises. So again, please, Madam Mayor, 5 minutes not enough, because there is lots of stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Maselli. We do appreciate you coming and taking the time you dropped something on the floor. We do look at these things very carefully. So thank you for your input. Mrs. Slater, would you like to come speak? Thank you.
My name is Jane Slater, and I live at 7802 89th Street. And I would like to talk about two things. One is the limited amount of funding in this year's budget for tree removal. We've got a problem in Osoyoos with the elm tree beetle, and yet our budget went up minimally, like $100 for tree removal. In early 2019, oh, and thank you, Council, for letting me speak. I should have started with that. In early July, Mayor McCodoff discussed the elm tree beetle infestation in Osoyoos with the RDOS and stated that most of the affected trees are not on private property but on Crown land, so not much that town can do to assist. At that time, Mayor McCodoff was hoping that transportation or highways would help out with this issue. July 19th, I spoke with Jim Dinwiddie shortly after reading Mayor McCodoff's interview. I live adjacent to town property. My fence borders town property, and that property is covered with elm trees, and I had the elm tree infestation. So I spoke to Jim Dinwiddie about getting those trees cut down, and he said that there was no money in the budget for tree removal. So I then emailed the current council of that time photos of their property and received no response. I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish this. I had a concussion a while back, and I'm getting really dizzy in here. And you know what? I'm going to sit down.
Grab a chair, Brian.
Okay.
I apologize. Can I do this sitting?
Yep.
Yes, absolutely.
Sorry, you don't want me to pass out on
No.
Thank you. Yeah, now I don't have those lights in my vision. Thank you. So anyways, I emailed council July 20th, included photos because the weeds in their property are taller than me. It's full of elm trees, blah, blah, blah. And I think they're contravening the good neighbor bylaw. I don't think I have a good neighbor of the town of Osoyoos. And I think that those elm trees are not just a issue on that particular piece of property. So I would like more money in the budget for tree removal. I know you guys were looking at getting an arborist. We need to move on with the tree thing. The other thing is bordering the same piece of property. There's been a sidewalk for that area. It's considered to be 89th Street, which is the piece of property running from the post office up to Main Street by Smitty's and up to Main Street. And it's been on the books since 2017 for 2018 completion in 2017. It's been moved forward every year. It's now scheduled for 2020. The funds have been in the first year to come from operating, the second year to come from borrowing, and now the money is in reserve. So the funds are available, just keeps getting moved forward. It's a real safety issue. That's a very busy street now with people bypassing Main Street. And there's lots of pedestrians in that area because they like to enjoy the pond. On the capital budget, it says it's from 89th Street to Smitty's. I would suggest it should be on both sides of the street because on the east side there's only a lane to interfere with the sidewalk, and it's safer to face traffic when you're a pedestrian. And on the west side, we've got 3 people that like to sit there watching the pond that are in wheelchairs. And Smitty's parking and the entrance to their parking lot is on that side, so we're creating another hazard. It's a short, narrow, winding road on a hill, and it's busy. And then I was looking at the budget, I saw this, that there were 3 sidewalk projects identified in the 2017 capital project plan, and they've all been moved forward. None of them have ever been done. One of them's now slated for 2021, one of them's slated for 2022, and this one that I'm talking about here is slated for 2020. So I'm just sort of bringing that to your attention. Thank you, Council.
Thank you very much. Jane, could I just make one point in your first one about the elm trees? My reason for saying that the elm trees were a concern of highways was because it was a specific piece of property. I wasn't referring to all the trees in town.
Okay.
It was the one over on the highway 97, and in fact, Department of Highways did come down and clear those out. So that was a good thing. But I was not referring to all the elm trees in town. So we do realize that there are.
Yeah,
Thank
you
I
said
just wanted
most.
to point that.
And there's that Gravenstein property or Gala Crescent that's got tons of elm trees in there, too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the budget? No? Okay. Do I have to ask 3 times?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the budget for the 2nd time? And for a 3rd time, is there anyone else who would like to speak to the budget? Hearing none, thank you. Mr. Zackel, can you carry on then, please?
Yes, thank you. So now, council's options before council is 3 options. Option 1 is for council to adopt 5-year financial plan, Bylaw 1349-2019. Option 2 for council to rescind 3rd reading, make further amendments to the bylaw and reread for a 3rd time. Or option 3 to delay the adoption of the bylaw.
Thank you very much. So, council? Councillor Bennett?
Thank you, Mayor Cordup. I would move that we adopt bylaw number 1349, 2019, as per option 1.
Thank you. Thank you. Seconding that. Anyone else need to speak to it? All in favor of passing this bylaw. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Zackel,
Thank you.
for all the work that you've done in doing this. Next is the zoning amendment bylaw. Ms. McKay.
Not on. Am I on?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. This report has been prepared in order to request that Council consider giving 3rd reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 1085.115, 2018, which is attached to this report. The amending bylaw, if adopted, would allow for a site-specific retail cannabis store to be located at 7603 Spartan Drive, which is home to the Owl Pub. So a little bit of background here, provincial licensing. The Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch of the Province of British Columbia will not issue a private retail license without local government approval or support. The LCRB has produced the Cannabis Retail Store License Terms and Conditions Handbook for non-medical cannabis in British Columbia, and Council will recall that that's been attached to many of your previous reports. So the handbook sets out the conditions of retail license. The handbook also addresses a number of specific issues which may be of concern to our community, including service training, store layout, security, and display of goods. These items are not, therefore, addressed or discussed in this report. With respect to the site and this specific proposal, the applicant is proposing to open a retail cannabis store in a portion of the building located at 7603 Spartan Drive, property of the Owl Pub and Liquor Store. The portion of the building proposed for a retail cannabis store is indicated in red on the aerial photo on the map, which is at the rear of the building. Pedestrian access to the retail store would be via the parking lot located on the north side of the property. The parking area also provides for a delivery area for the pub and liquor store. The photo is indicated there, and in your agenda package shows the area of the building proposed for use as a recreational cannabis retail store. With respect to the zoning bylaw, a text amendment is required as cannabis retail sales is not a permitted use within the town of Soyce without first applying for and succeeding in a site-specific rezoning. With respect to the official community plan, as per section 10.4 of the OCP, Osoyoos has been fortunate to maintain its traditional downtown Main Street, which is a major attraction for tourists and residents. Accordingly, the downtown has its own unique OCP land use designation zone, and the OCP policies promote an attractive mix of complementary uses downtown. So at their September 4th, 2018 meeting, Council adopted the Cannabis retail sales site-specific rezoning considerations policy. Now, the intent of the policy is to ensure that all rezoning proposals for retail cannabis are reviewed based on the same criteria. The subject property itself provides for limited on-site parking, as indicated in the photos, adjacent to the proposed retail store. However, the primary function of this area has been to use as a loading dock for both the pub and the liquor store. The space also serves as a garage and recycling area. The area is not, therefore, suitable for customer parking, and there are some spaces adjacent to this specific part of the property which seems to provide for temporary parking for customers of the liquor store, and to the rear for parking for staff. Now, staff is of the opinion that the location could serve as a cannabis retail outlet. However, it is important that the parking issues be resolved and the underground parking underbuilding parking be reopened. The site would also benefit from clearly delineating a pedestrian route, either a crosshatch walkway or other methodology, through the parking lot adjacent to the building. It's also recommended that delivery trucks be required to back in such that the cab of the truck is not protruding over the sidewalk. A review of the site plan, which was previously approved as part of the building permit process, indicates that the loading bay is long enough to accommodate improved unloading practices. So, implications for the community, again, promoting an attractive mix of complementary commercial uses is a benefit to the community. Organizationally, should the amending bylaw receive third reading, it would then be placed on hold until such time as the town is notified by the province that the applicant has been successful in obtaining the necessary approvals from the province, following which the bylaw would then be brought forward to council for final adoption. The proponent will also be required to provide information on how they plan to address the previous concerns with the underbuilding parking, and this parking area needs to be reopened in order to comply with the development permit currently registered on title. Regardless of the outcome of the rezoning, they have assured me they are going to address that. There are no impacts to the budget associated with this report. Again, this item will be placed on a future council agenda, assuming third reading is given today. Town policy for commercial growth includes avoiding urban sprawl. Now, the options before council today are that council gives third reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 1. That would be option number 1, or bylaw number 1085.115, pardon me. Option 2 is council defers third reading of the bylaw until later date. Option 3, council requests further revisions to the bylaw before proceeding. Or option 4 is council recommends any other action deemed appropriate, and that could include suspending the bylaw or not supporting the bylaw or recommending that the bylaw be abandoned. Now, at this time, council staff are recommending option 1.
Thank you very much. Councillor King, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess I'm just trying to understand the clarity over the parking. When the proponent came to the open house at third reading, he talked about opening the underground parking, and I'm wondering if that has to sort of be done before we would pass or not pass this third reading, or is that kind of a separate issue?
Thank you, Councillor King, through the chair. That's a very good question. We haven't actually specifically identified that as a requirement prior to fourth reading. What I have stated previously is that is a requirement regardless of the outcome of this, and that this proceedings for this amending bylaw, we've requested that this be resolved prior to our summer onslaught of tourists, basically.
Thank you. Anyone? Councillor Rhodes?
Thank you, Madam Kordoff. I'm prepared to make a motion based on the wording in option number 1, the staff recommended, and I too have a comment and a couple of questions.
Okay.
As a seconder.
Is there? Are you seconding that motion? Go ahead, then, Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Madam Kordoff. At the public hearing, there was a number of concerns that were brought up, and you made reference to it in your report. I'm wondering at which point we will see those. Will it be when we're being asked for final reading or some meeting before it so we can evaluate it? I think many of the concerns that were brought forward are pretty serious ones, and I would like to make sure that they're going to be addressed, and not only addressed, but corrected so that it's a better retail outlet than it is at the current time. Sorry, that was a lot of questions. I didn't mean
That
to
was
drag
Councillor Rhodes, but I'm okay with that. Thank you, Councillor, through the chair. If you would like to see those issues addressed by the applicant, I would strongly advise that, or suggest, that you request that those be addressed prior to third reading of the bylaw, because at third reading of the bylaw, I would then advise the province that we have now reached that point where council's in a position to grant approval subject to the proposal being moved forward at the province. So, for example, if you want to see some proposal of how they plan to open the underground parking or the underbuilding parking, or if you want to see pedestrian area delineated in through the parking lot such that they had a safe way to travel, I would suggest that you request that staff have the applicant address those issues prior to giving it third reading.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak
You want a
first?
second session?
I know that CJ did. I just wondered if, no, okay. Can I say something first and then?
Yeah, of course.
No, it's just that I'm a member of this panel too. I guess I have a concern about supporting this bylaw, partly because I drive by that area all the time on my way to the post office, or when I'm out walking, I'll walk that area. And I've seen the trucks, delivery trucks, and I've looked, and they seem to be taking up the entire area at the back. Plus, anytime I've been by there, they've always been extended out onto the sidewalk. So I do have a concern about the ability for customers, if there was a retail outlet of any kind in there, to be able to get in and out safely. So that, I guess, is my concern. I don't see there being a lot of room around there. Garbage trucks need to get in there, recycling, delivery trucks, and it concerns me that if we move forward with this, that we could have a liability issue at some point. And that was what I thought. So, Councillor Rhodes, you go ahead. I'm sorry, you had something else to add.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. That was part of my concern as well.
Okay.
Although, in all fairness to the applicant, I think we should hear what the solutions that can be brought forward, and that's all that I was asking for. And I felt comfortable that we could do it before the fourth reading, but I'd be prepared to rescind that motion or have it defeated or whatever.
We're going to check with Mrs. Hilson. So it's been moved and seconded, so we would have to
Table it.
She said no, they'll have to table
I'm sorry, just point of clarification here.
Should
Could
we?
you table it and then have it brought
Yes,
direct staff?
That is Jeanette's
Correct.
recommendation, is to table the motion.
So the possibility is to table this motion, have
Direct staff.
direct staff to come back at a next meeting or another meeting and
Correct.
put this back on the table again? Is that what can be done? Okay. And now, does
Just for
that fit with
clarification-
the motion?
Just for clarification,
Yes.
it is a bylaw. So if you defeat a bylaw, you can't deal with the
That's why you
bylaw.
can't defeat it.
I see.
So that's why you can't defeat it, but you can table it and provide staff the direction to bring back additional information on the solutions identified for parking and the delivery area.
Yes.
Okay. And I'll give Councillor King an opportunity to ask first before we go ahead.
If we were to defeat this motion, we could put another motion on the floor? No?
So, because then you've already defeated that motion. so
Okay,
you can't
okay.
come
I
back.
just looked at the options. Oh, you'd have to say the other one first? Okay.
Okay.
Can we
so
amend the motion?
Can we amend it to? Can the mover and seconder amend the motion to have?
That's just what I said.
Okay.
Okay.
That
So,
amend the motion to
Table it now.
Yeah.
Would the mover and seconder of that motion be agreeable to that? And who seconded?
Those two.
Was it you?
No.
I'm sorry. It was
Yes.
Councillor Bennett.
Yes.
Okay. So it's now been amended to move to have this motion tabled while we ask staff to come back with some concerns. Okay. That's okay with both. Go ahead, Councillor Rhodes.
Question for staff. Do we have a concise listing of the concerns so that the applicant can address them?
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes. Through the chair, it's my understanding that we would ask them to address first how you're going to how to address the concerns previously raised that resulted in closing of the parkade. That would be the first one. The second one would be how to address the concerns relative to the truck traffic at the rear of the property. And third, how to address the pedestrians interacting with that truck traffic. In other words, is there a delineation by a sidewalk or something like that, hatching and through the parking lot to direct people to travel beside the building, or how does that cover? That's the three items that I've identified or have been identified by the public at our public hearing.
Is that okay? Do you have something else?
Yeah, I think that's really good. I just think in all fairness, the applicant should have an opportunity to address those before we move forward with it.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded, the amended motion to table it. I'm going to ask for the question if everybody's okay. All in favor?
Can we ask what it read?
We had it read.
Okay.
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 So just for council information, you have 30 days to deal with this issue.
Thank
Okay.
you. So that will mean that staff, meaning Gina,
Correct.
will be dealing with it. Thank you very much. Next is the zoning amendment bylaw, another one.
This only first and second reading.
Ms. McKay.
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. So, this proposal before you today is to request that council consider zoning amendment bylaw number 1085.118. The bylaw, if adopted, will allow for a site-specific retail cannabis store to be located at 9143 Main Street in units number 1 and 2. And for clarity, that is a shopping center in the C2 zone, and it is at Gateway Plaza, where Bylaw Foods is. So again, you understand what the provisions are with respect to liquor and cannabis regulation branch, so we needn't go through that again. The applicant is proposing to open a retail cannabis store at the Gateway Square Shopping Center. The retail cannabis outlet is proposed to occupy 2 vacant units adjacent to the dollar store with more business. Text amendment is required as retail cannabis sales is not permitted use within the town of Osoyoos. At the October 15th meeting, council adopted a zoning bylaw amendment which added the following section to the zoning bylaw. Section 4.22, council may approve a rezoning application for cannabis sales as a site-specific permitted use in the C1 downtown commercial zone, C2 shopping center commercial zone, and the C3 highway commercial zone with consideration of policy PLA-019 and any additional information council deems appropriate. Accordingly, the applicant has submitted this application to rezone this property at 9143 Main Street, which is in the C2 shopping center commercial zone. Again, attached to this report illustrates the proposed cannabis store site in relation to the zoning of neighboring properties, which I thought was important. So, as per section 5.7.1 of the OCP, commercial growth will continue to be focused on the Main Street, Highway 3 corridor, and its intersection with Highway 97. The proposed development would be utilizing spaces that have been vacant since the Gateway Shopping Center was developed. Additional policies in the OCP discourage outward migration of businesses to other areas. Therefore, the proposed use of this property for a retail cannabis store is considered to be in conformance with the official community plan. Council is aware of PLA 019, which is the cannabis retail sales site-specific rezoning consideration policy. Customer parking is available at the shopping center as it is for other commercial businesses. No other cannabis retail stores are currently proposed for this area at this time. So staff is of the opinion that this location is suitable for the proposed use and will enable a new business to be established in our town. With respect to the community, again, promoting a mix of complementary commercial uses benefits our community and provides year-round service and support to commercial continued growth within our area. So the rezoning process requires a public hearing. Should the amending bylaw receive a third reading again, it then is placed on hold until such time as we're notified by the province that they're moving forward with the application. There's no impacts to the budget associated with this report. Staff are proposing a public hearing date of April 1st at 4 p.m. Town policy for commercial growth includes sprawl development. The options before council today are option number 1 in 2 parts. Part A, council grants first and second reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 1085.118, and B, council sets a public hearing date of April 1st at 4 p.m. Option 2, council rejects the zoning bylaw amendment. Option 3, council requests additional information before proceeding further. Or option 4, council recommends any other action deemed appropriate, and staff are recommending option number 1, which is first and second reading and setting a public hearing date. Thank you, Mayor McCordoff.
Thank you. Mrs. Hilson, would we need to separate those? That would be 2 motions. Okay. Councillor King?
I'll move number 1A, that council gives first, second reading to the zoning amendment bylaw 1085.118, 219.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Rhodes. All in favor? Thank you. Someone like to make a motion? Councillor Rhodes.
I'll move that council sets a public hearing date of April 1st, 2019 at 4 p.m.
Thank you. Is there somebody? Councillor Bennett seconding that? All in favor? Thank you. So so we're good with that one. Thank you very much. And we're now on to, is this Mr. MacArthur? Another zoning amendment bylaw, 3810 Lobelia Drive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. So in regards to zoning amendment bylaw 1085.114 2018 at 3810 Lobelia Drive, this is to consider third reading. During the February 4th, 2019 regular open meeting, council gave first and second readings to the zoning amendment bylaw 1085.114. A public hearing was then held on February 19th. The bylaw proposes to rezone the property from R1 single-family residential to R2 single-family residential small lot. The subject property consists of a 1.3126 hectare or 3.24 acre parcel on Lobelia Drive. The property is currently zoned R1, which would allow for subdivision into single-family residential lots. The proposed new R2 zone would permit single-family dwellings on smaller lot sizes. The property includes the northern section of Sonora Pond, which has been identified as habitat for endangered, threatened, and special concern species. In conjunction with the rezoning application, an environmental impact assessment was conducted by Valley Environmental and report provided to town staff on January 4th. The environmental impact assessment provides a detailed list of actions to be taken. Included in the requirements, the applicant must adhere to the following: that a 12 to 27 meter buffer zone, which is an average of 15 meter setback, must be legally designated by a no-build, no-disturb covenant, and that a physical separation between the subdivision and the covenant area, such as a fence or other means, be placed at the environmental setback. So at the public hearing on the public hearing was held on February 19th. Brad Alenko of McElhaney Consulting spoke as the applicant for the proposal. He provided council with information about the proposed plan to apply for subdivision of the parcel into 16 small lots. Several members of the public raised concerns about various aspects of the proposal, including protection of the pond and parking issues. The applicant addressed these concerns by stating that the recommendations of the environmental impact assessment will ensure protection of the pond and that each parcel will have 2 parking spaces as per the zoning bylaw. Other concerns, such as garbage collection and servicing issues, were also raised. Those concerns are not land use issues and therefore must be addressed by the approving officer at subdivision stage. Rationale for recommendation. Staff recommend the rezoning as there is an R2 development immediately south of the subject property as shown on attachment 2 in this package, and the development will provide additional housing options for residents. Community, the proposed rezoning, if approved, will enable a small lot subdivision to proceed. This would provide new housing options for residents. Organizationally, should the bylaw receive third reading, it would be placed on hold until a subdivision plan is received and reviewed by the approving officer. The Ministry of Transportation Infrastructure final approval is also required following third reading by Council. There are no budgetary concerns at this time. Significant dates, and also none at this time. And sustainability, the proposal will ensure the Sonora Pond habitat is preserved and endangered species protected. So options for Council. Council gives a third reading to Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 1085.11 for 2018. 2, that Council defers giving third reading to the bylaw until a later date. 3, that Council requests revisions to the bylaw before proceeding further. And 4, that Council recommends any other action deemed appropriate. Staff recommend option 1.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Member Kordoff. Can I ask a couple of questions prior to the motion? Yeah. The 12 to 27 meter buffer zone around the pond, that's a big difference between 12 and 27. And I'm wondering at the end of the day if we'll be leaning towards the 27 or the 12. And I'd also like to know whether that area will be accessible by the public.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes. Through the Chair, on the issue of the setback, the qualified environmental professional who wrote the environmental impact assessment determined that certain areas required more of a setback. So, for example, at the west side of the property, the 27-meter setback will allow some trees to be protected there, whereas on the other side of the property, he determined that the setback could be a lesser amount. So by reducing that to 12 on that side, a parcel could be developed there, and there was less concern about the protecting of that area based on the environmental assessment and what needed to be protected. So the middle of the property will have the 15 meters, and the east side will be more of a 12-meter setback, and then 27 meters, a more generous setback at the west side. But it averages out spatially to about 15 meters on average. Okay. So that's how the QEP determined that setback. And then in regards to access, we looked at possibly providing a path or something like that in the area, but we determined that for the protection of the species, the salamanders, the toads, and the turtles that are there, that sealing the pond off at the north side was probably the best way to go, because we didn't want to have conflicts between humans and pets with the species that were there. So in order to ensure the protection of those species, that decision was made to not allow access to the north side of the pond.
So I had a question on the south side of the pond, because that pond does span both developments, if there's one. Is there a public access on the south side, or is it just for the residents who actually own property there? Do you know that? And I'm sorry if I put you on an awkward...
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. So on the south side, there is an access point that is on property that all of the residents on the south side own, so they all have a share in that. Whether members of the public use that access, that's not something we control.
Okay. So it's private property owned by the south.
It is private property.
Fair enough. Yeah. Thank you. So do we have a motion here, or Councillor Rhodes? Sorry, could we let Ms. McKay?
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. I just want to clarify that as a condition of the rezoning, a covenant needs to be placed on the property restricting it at Section 219 Environmental Protection Covenant. And then as a condition of subdivision approval, that area would be dedicated to the town in perpetuity for retention for its environmental values. So it will become our property.
And the
Thank
town
you.
will have control over it.
That's correct.
So does that answer your question? Because, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Member Kordoff. Just further to my original question, I think we're doing our due diligence in protecting the pond. There's some fine-tuning that we will definitely have to do and that kind of thing, but now I have concerns that we have a pond that is going to be public property that we're not going to allow anybody in there to look at it. So how do people other than the residents that live in that area enjoy that amenity in our community? Is there not some way we could address, because it would be developer driven, I would imagine.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes. Through the chair, it's a very good question. We did look at some options around that. If you'll note, on Lobelia Drive, we actually do have, I believe it's a pumping station on that, or a lift station. And we did look at a possible opportunity to have like a sitting area, a viewing area, as it were. Public Works does not want us to have any public access near there. So that would mean the only other methodology for allowing the public access to it would be to not designate it as a covenanted area, which we could do, but I don't know how we'd actually get people down to the area, because the only space to get people down to the area is through that area that has those operational services in it.
Go ahead.
Well, I hate to be argumentative about it. If you draw a comparison to a similar situation on Gyro Beach, just because Public Works didn't want anybody to go down there, we wouldn't just close it down.
Yeah.
It's an amenity in our community that should be open for people to enjoy. We don't know what that's going to be, but we should provide the opportunity, I think, in some way, and maybe a walkway along there of some kind, or...
Again, just to provide clarity, perhaps we didn't identify it well enough in the report, that the report actually specifically identifies that the public access should not be improved through into that area because of those environmental values. I note that if the application to the south had come forward at this time with the current environmental considerations at the province, that access would not have been granted. So it's just changed considerably over time. That is often the challenge when you move forward and provincial regulations change.
I get it. It's tricky, Councillor.
It is tricky.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I see Councillor Rhodes' concerns, but I think the key word is environmentally concerned, and usually when that happens, you don't really want people walking through it. I mean, that's really my street.
Do you mind if I respond?
Go ahead.
There are literally thousands of environmentally sensitive areas within our community and our area that are accessible by the public, and in most cases are well managed and respected by people that are using them. So,
Mayor McCordoff,
yes.
I could certainly have a look at it as the approving officer prior to proceeding with approval of the subdivision, and certainly prior to bringing it forward to fourth reading. It needn't hold up the bylaw from moving forward at this time, but I can certainly take that under advisement that we have a look at that.
and I would like to repeat myself. I think we're doing a good job in protecting the area. My concerns were about the public being able to enjoy it.
So, in that case, how would we proceed with this? Do we first of all have put a motion on the table? I don't think we have one yet, do we? Okay, would somebody like to put a motion on the table?
I would move option one, that we give third reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 1085,
That's what I said.
114, 2018.
Thank you. We have a motion on the table, option one. Is there, you're seconding that? Now, do we have some suggested ways to deal with it?
I was just clarifying that the covenant and the use of the environmental sensitive area is not a zoning issue, which the bylaw is addressing, and speaking to the Director of Planning's strategy to approach exactly how we address any public access will be done during the subdivision, and we'll have to go back to the QEP report and just see the nature of the area and how we can address public access.
Thank you for that, Mr. Romanko. Just to clarify, honestly, it's not the people that we really concern ourselves with. Mostly it's the dogs. It's because when you have a walking path, then you invite the opportunity for people to come and bring their pets in there. And one of the concerns expressed from the neighbors to the south was also that if you have people that can access just the bit of the pond on the north, then there's the anticipation that they're going to walk around the pond through private property. So that we're going to look at this certainly as part of the subdivision approval process and see if we can come up with a creative idea that allows people to enjoy the pond without necessarily bringing their pets into that environmentally sensitive area.
Not to be argumentative, Dr. Rhodes, I was going to call you now.
So just one comment addressing the zoning matter. Regrettably, if these are not addressed during the zoning process, that there may or may not be an opportunity to address that concern in the future.
Well,
secondly, addressing the pet/dog situation, we have a long meandering pathway along our lake that we restrict all kinds of animals, including dogs, for a good portion of our year, and it's respected by most people in our community as well.
So let's go back. We just want to make sure that if we pass this zoning amendment bylaw, it means that the zoning part can go forward, and then the development permits for the property would have to be dealt with as a separate issue.
Thank you, Mayor McCarthy. To be clear, there are no development permits required. It's a subdivision that's required. So the approving officer has quite a bit of leeway, or I don't want to use the P word, which is power. But it's true when approving a subdivision to ensure that the concerns of the community and certainly access to the public, if it's deemed appropriate, is granted. So there's.
So if we were to pass this bylaw now, that would mean, could we add something to it that we want you to consider this through the subdivision process? No, we would leave that up.
But it's only at third reading. You're not passing it at this point.
Okay, so we don't do fourth until.
I'm happy with that.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we go with option one, that we give third reading. We okay with that? All in favor? Thank you. Okay. Next is the business license amendment bylaw. Ms. McKay.
Okay. So this is business license amendment bylaw number 1045.34, 2019, in respect of adding retail cannabis sales to the business license bylaw. At the February 4th, 2019 council meeting, council gave first, second, and third reading to the attached business license amendment bylaw number 1045.34. The bylaw, if adopted, would allow for business licenses to be issued for retail cannabis stores in the town of Osoyoos. Note that business license could only be issued if a site-specific zoning was in place for the proposed business location. Advertisements with respect to the proposed bylaw amendment were placed in 2 consecutive issues of the Osoyoos Times dated March 7th and March 14th. With respect to the community input on the location of retail cannabis stores is being sought through the rezoning process. Organizationally, the amendment will be considered into a new, updated version of the business license bylaw to be prepared by the Planning and Development Services Department later this year. No effects to the budget at this time. A business license for a retail cannabis store cannot be issued until such time as the business license bylaw has been amended to include this use and the corresponding fee. The proposed use would contribute to economic sustainability by diversifying the range of businesses and new opportunities in our community. And the options before council are today are option 1, council adopts the amending bylaw as proposed. Option 2, council defers adoption of the bylaw until a later date. Option 3, council requests further revisions to the bylaw before proceeding. And option 4, council recommends any other action deemed appropriate, and staff recommend option 1 at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. But we do have an option now for public input. Am I correct? That was why
That's correct. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you do.
Yes. So if there, at this time, if there's anyone who would like to speak to this particular license amendment bylaw, would you please come up to the microphone? Okay, I'll ask for a second time. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the business license amendment bylaw? For a third time, is there anyone who would like to speak to the business license amendment bylaw? Hearing none, thank you. We will go on to Councillor Rhodes, or Councillor King. So you've been
I'll make a
voted,
motion,
so-
number 1, council adopts business license agreement bylaw 1045.34 219.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Thank you. Councillor Rhodes, is there anyone who would like to speak to this? No. Okay. All in favor of the business of option 1? Thank you very much. And now, are we dealing with the letter that goes with this?
No.
No. Thank you. It's in the package. Part of it's in the package. All right. Business plan highlights and approval request. Mr. Romanko.
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. The Director of Finance has provided council and the public with an overview of the financial changes proposed in the 2019 budget and capital plan. The 2019 to 22 business plan identifies projects identified for implementation in 2019 and planned for future years. The business plan provides transparency to future community investments, resource allocations, projects, and staff activities. The business plan should be fluid enough to respond to emerging events in the community and council direction. Council approves the 2019 operating budget, 5-year capital plan, and 4-year business plan. The business plan reinforces the delivery of core services and service levels. Some of the projects identified for 2019 implementation have been carried over from the last year due to shifting priorities or factors that delayed implementation. The business plan also identifies special projects and investments that Council is considering. I am taking this opportunity to highlight some of the key activities proposed in this year's budget and business plan. Starting first in general capital and parks, the Osoyoos Park, that's at the end of Cottonwood, a washroom construction is scheduled, and Council has given pre-budget approval for that already. The dog park upgrades and ball diamond improvements will be completed on the West Bench. West Bench washroom construction. Construct a bike trail from Lakeshore Drive to Cottonwood Drive, subject to receiving Bike BC grant. The community garden at Sonora Center. Reconstruction of Cottonwood Beach retaining wall and refurbished area. Improvements to the Sonora Center access. In terms of road infrastructure, 2 projects are proposed. The Jasmine Drive 32nd intersection for safety improvements, and the intersection at Main Street and 70th Avenue for safety and downtown improvement. In terms of water and sewer, water main lift construction to start in spring and end in fall. Plans are in place to assist the golf course in the event they initiate the irrigation restoration project. Research relating to future water sourcing and water twinning subject to grant approval. Priority operations projects will include continued work on the regional pool development, application for boundary expansion in the Lakeshore Drive area, hiring of a full-time fire chief, hiring of a new CAO, staff and internal bylaw enforcement service, feasibility study for a new town hall, review of the official community plan, a housing needs assessment, public consultation on lands donated to the town, a resort municipality strategy, and the purchase of a new fire truck. The administration will be involved in many more activities related to our core services. However, these are some of the key highlights for 2019. In terms of implications, the community benefits from a transparent business plan that highlights planned projects for a 4-year period between 2019 and 2020. Organizationally, the organization has a clear direction on council priority projects and direction. In terms of budget allocations are identified for 2019, and the committee has a transparent forecast on future projects. In terms of significant dates, the business plan is for the period 2019 to 2022. However, it is fluid due to the changing nature of the community. In terms of sustainability, the sustainability plan is used as a foundation document in the preparation of all planning documents. 3 options are presented to Council. First being Council approves the 2019 to 2020 business plan as presented. 2, Council makes changes to the plan presented and approves the 2019 to 2022 business plan. And 3, Council requests changes or additional information prior to approving the 2019 to 2022 business plan. And the administration recommends option number 1.
Thank you very much. Council, what are your... Councillor Rhodes?
Thank you, Madam Kordoff. I'll make a motion based on staff recommendation, option number 1.
Thank you. Councillor King, seconding that. Anybody have any concerns, questions? We've gone through this quite a few times, haven't we, in day-long sessions, so I think Council certainly understands the reason for this. Councillor Bennett, go ahead.
The only thing that came up the other day when Jim and I were going through the grants, Councillor King, there's 3 different people, the pickleball, the senior ball, minor ball. We're all looking for storage areas up inside the washroom. So maybe something we can look at in the future that they all ask for funding for. So it looks like they're all in the same area. So I don't know if that comes into here. But it's
No,
just
that'll. I've talked to Gerald about that, and that's something that we're going to be working with the groups on, and maybe try and massage the grant program a little bit to accommodate that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Rhodes?
I'd be the first to acknowledge that this business plan is a collaboration of all staff and council, and but I would like to compliment Mr. Romanko for taking care and control of this business plan many years ago, and it's a driving document for almost everything that we do in our community, and really helps out with the decision-making process by council. So thank you very much, and I hope you will pass that recognition of the collaborated part of it on to staff as well.
I will.
Very, very much appreciated.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, it's great, and we all have a way of contributing to it, and Mr. Romanko puts it together very well. So thank you. So have we already we moved it? Have we seconded it? Okay. All in favor? Thank you very much. I just point out as well, because it was brought up before, that there are times when we look at the business plan the following year and we make adjustments to it based on new information or new projects that come forward. So this is always an ongoing plan that we deal with. Okay, next is the Mr. MacArthur, the revised street food vendor selection and approval policy.
Thank you, Member Kordoff. At the February 19th Council Committee of the Whole meeting, Council directed staff to revise the street food vendor selection and approval policy and associated business license bylaw number 1045/1997, and present the revised policy and bylaw to Council for consideration at a later date. So the town receives inquiries about food vendor licenses on a regular basis. A review of the current policy revealed the need for a refresh. The associated bylaws Schedule D also requires amendment for clarity. The current policy outlines the application process for quotas and food vendors. The proposed revisions are intended to increase options for potential food vendor operators, streamline the application process, and bring the policy into alignment with the business license bylaw and the town center renewal plan. The proposed changes include revising the categories of food vendors and associated quotas, replacing the expression of interest process with a staff-led process of evaluating food vendor applications, and revising the required vendor information to ensure necessary information is collected. Importantly, the proposed food vendor application form, which is attached, will ask applicants to describe how their food offerings will complement those of existing restaurants and food vendors. Policy context. The OCP emphasizes the importance of creating a diverse and vibrant downtown. One way to achieve diversity and vibrancy is to enable a variety of food options. In order to ensure a diversity of food offerings, applicants must describe how their proposed food offerings will complement existing options. The zoning bylaw stipulates off-street parking provisions. Any private properties with food vendors must still meet those parking requirements. The business license bylaw sets out requirements for food vendors. The bylaw permits food vendors to operate on municipal or private land, subject to a series of provisions. Operators on municipal land must obtain a license of use agreement from council. A list of permitted park locations is included in Schedule D of that bylaw. The current list of uses is unclear, such as the language saying potential. In order to provide clarity and additional options for food vendors, the amending bylaw proposes to amend the legend to state the following. And you can see the amending list here. So these would be the parks that we would be permitting food vendors, and also the unsuitable locations. And then the map would also be updated. So food vendor selection approval policy. The current policy restricts food vendor locations and the number of available licenses. In order to increase options for prospective business operators, the proposed policy would revise the category of vendors and associated quotas. Furthermore, to enable a staff-led process, the proposed policy would ask applicants to submit an application form for staff review. These changes are included in the proposed policy. A draft application form, which would be available online for prospective food vendors, has also been included for informational purposes. Town Center Renewal Plan. The Town Center Renewal Plan emphasizes the importance of protecting existing businesses in downtown while enabling the establishment of complementary services. One of the strategies recommended by the Town Center Renewal Plan is to increase the number of food vendors in the downtown as a means of increasing vibrancy in the area. Community feedback during the Town Center Renewal Plan process supported this recommendation. Rationale for recommendation: by revising the license quotas and locations available for potential food operators and streamlining the application process, staff expect more potential food vendors to follow through with their initial inquiry. And the Town Center Renewal Plan also encourages an increase in the number of food options in downtown, which was supported through community feedback. Importantly, food vendors would complement the existing food options for residents and tourists rather than replicating them. Implications: community, residents, and visitors will potentially have an increased diversity of food options, which should also increase vibrancy in the community. Organizational: staff will be required to review food vendor applications. Vendors will be approved for a short-term license of occupation, which will be issued by the CAO and Director of Planning under the authority granted by the Delegation of Authority bylaw. There are no costs associated with this report, no significant dates at this time, and in terms of sustainability, a vibrant community will aid in the town's economic sustainability. So options for the bylaw amendment: that 1, council gives first, second, and third readings to Business License Amendment Bylaw number 1045.35 2019, or 2, council requests additional information or revisions to the bylaw before proceeding further, or 3, council does not take any further action and the bylaw will be abandoned. Recommendation is for option 1. And should I pause there while that's dealt with, or?
Okay, let's do that.
Okay.
I just had a question. I remember you've got locations for vendor trucks and carts, that there was one at the corner of Main Street and 85th, and it was there for quite a few months. I think it was not last summer, but summer before.
So they're not on
That is not, so what you've got here are the locations for vendor trucks and vendor carts in parks, and I'm wondering, have you not allowed that, or is that a possibility as well? Sorry.
Thank you, Member Kordoff. So that's, the parks is an update for the bylaw, but the proposed policy, the new policy, does still include off-main, downtown off-main food trucks, and that would include the 85th
So that
location.
would be the second motion.
Yeah, that would be under the policy.
If I looked at it carefully, I probably would have realized that. I'm sorry. Yes.
Just briefly, thank you, Mayor McCorduck, for the opportunity to speak to this
Yeah.
very important proposal we have before you. If you look at the policy, it's actually become a lot more liberal, I would say, that it allows a lot more street vendors to locate in our community, and that was the impetus for this. Unfortunately, it was sort of tangled up with the bylaw, so we had to request an amendment to the bylaw as well as a new policy. So the revised policy, if you look on your agenda, page 10 of this report, I think, and I'm sure that Mr. MacArthur is going to speak to that. But just
Okay.
for clarity, it actually is more liberal and provides opportunity for new vendors. Thank you.
So we're just talking about a business license amendment bylaw first.
Correct.
Okay. Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. I'll move option 1. The council moves to adopt revised policy PLA-016.
Okay, that's number 1 there, bylaw amendment. Is there a seconder?
That's
For clarity, Mr. Councillor Rhodes was moving the option 1 on the bylaw,
Yeah, okay.
so that would
this one first.
We've got to go to
about
this one.
policy.
I'm sorry, I didn't know I heard
correct.
it.
That's. I think he may have been mistaken.
So we're going up to the first
First,
option.
second, third reading.
First,
Okay,
second,
I'll
and
pull
third.
back
reading.
on that and
See, I'm as confused as well,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, it's
option number
Here.
1 in the first 3 options.
Okay.
Are you seconding that, Councillor King?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's option 1 of the bylaw amendment. Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Now, do you want to explain the second
Sure.
part, which we've jumped to? Thank you.
So what I'll do, if you'll allow me, Mayor
Yep.
McCordoff, is to direct you to page 9 and 10 of the package, which outlines the proposed policy. And I can go through that with you so that you can see what the proposal is. So the proposal here would have applicants submitting an application form. So that's part A of the proposed section. And so the attached is the proposed, or a draft. It's not set in stone, but it's a draft application form. Section B outlines the different permits and requirements that they require, including from Interior Health, license of use agreement from council if it's on municipal land, a letter of permission or a lease agreement if it's on private land, etc. The Section C directly talks about the license of use agreement. Part D sets out that the fees should be according to the bylaw. So we have fees already outlined in Section A of the bylaw. Then on the next page, we have the revised quotas here. So what we've done is there's different categories of vendors. So we kept that the same as before, but we added some new categories. So you'll see here that we have Main Street, but that's from Main Street from Park Place to Kingfisher Drive. So not Main Street, sort of this part of Main Street, but the part of Main Street after you turn the corner would permit 1 per block. The off Main, which is what you were referring to before with this location on 85th, that would also be 1 per block maximum. That there would be parking lots permitted with any parking lots of a minimum of 10 stalls in the C1 zone, so that's for that. There was also for parking lots in the C2, 3, or 4 zones with a minimum of 10 stalls. And just to clarify on both of those, that I mentioned in the report that the parking requirements under the zoning bylaw would still need to be met. So by subtracting 1 space in a parking lot for the food vendor, they would still need to meet their parking requirements for their business with the remaining parking spaces.
Okay.
Then there's also the stationary liquor establishment vendor, which is a category that was in the previous policy, which would allow one per parcel at a liquor establishment. So that's a pub or craft brewery, that sort of thing. Stationary farm market vendor. So this is one per parcel. That would allow a food truck on a agricultural parcel which has a fruit and vegetable market. So, for example, up at the corner near the info center, the tourist info center on Highway 3, there's those food markets there. So that would allow for a food truck on a parcel of that nature.
Okay.
But only if they have a farm market, so not on other agricultural properties. And then stationary park vendor is what we're amending. We just amended for the bylaw, which refers to the actual parks, right? So that's referring to that list of parks that we just covered. And then mobile street vendor is for a vehicle that travels around, like an ice cream truck that drives around, that type of vehicle. And we've kept that at 2, which is what was in the previous policy. There's also here Part F, which is for special events, which was also in the previous policy, which we've kept for food trucks to have additional food trucks with a application to hold a special event. So, for example, on Canada Day, there could be a number of food trucks brought in as part of a special event permit, and that would be a discretion of that permit process.
Which is what we've been doing for 70 years.
Right.
And they still have to have interior health and everything, right?
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Okay.
So is that clear on what the
thank
policy?
you. I'm glad you explained it, because that was I was a little unclear.
Okay. So the options for council then for the policy would be 1, that council moves to adopt the revised policy PLA-016. 2, that council requests additional information or revisions to the policy before proceeding further. And 3, that council recommends any other action deemed appropriate. And staff recommend option 1.
Thank you. Now, Councillor King.
I have a question. Can you explain the liquor establishment vendor? Can you give me an example, per se?
Yeah, so that would be a pub. So that could be on the property of the Sage or the Owl pubs.
So they could go outside, as like give them more leniency types of thing? Okay.
Right. So,
but then they'd be on a sidewalk, so that wouldn't be allowed?
No,
it would be on their parking lot.
So underneath they could have a big party, if they chose to.
No, it's only for food sales. So
Yeah.
if you
Well,
recall,
it just seems funny the way it reads.
well, it's at the Sage Pub. They had a hot dog
That's fine,
movable cart. That's
I'm
what you're
reading it
referring to.
as though they're putting liquor outside.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor McCordell, for the opportunity. I just also wanted to clarify one thing. We're also setting ourselves up for craft breweries here, because we've had a lot of inquiries about opportunities for craft breweries. A lot of craft breweries are looking to locate in our community and not necessarily wanting to provide food service on site. So there may be opportunities for them to start their craft brewery and start with a food truck in the parking lot, for example. So we're just trying to be creative and not have to come back to council at a later date.
So can I ask, if one of these, say, a food truck or a craft brewery wanted to set up in the parking lot of the Sage, for instance, they would have to get permission from the Sage?
Yes.
Because it's their property. Okay, fair enough. I just want to make sure. Yeah. And you do know that at Market on Main, there are several of those opportunities for people for wine and spirits, and they set up on Saturday mornings. Yeah.
Yes, I have seen that.
Yes. Councillor Rhodes.
Sorry, did they have to apply through this, or they just?
No.
They apply through Market on Main. They who have to get a special permit to allow this, so they go through the town, basically.
But we're adding a food vendor now, which they never have had before.
Here at the Market on, there's always been the opportunity to have one, there hasn't been one that's,
Okay, then I
that's
didn't
voluntary,
think they
yeah.
allowed food, like a food
Oh,
truck
yeah.
or something.
No, they do.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Rhodes.
I'm going to try this again. Maybe I'll get it right this time. I'll make a motion to adopt revised policy PLA-016
Thank you. And you're seconding that?
at the right time.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this motion? Okay, all in, oh, sorry, you wanted to, go ahead.
What are we going to do when they approve edible cannabis products?
Could we not deal with that today? You know what we're going to do? We're going to let Ms. McKay and Mr. MacArthur deal with that issue.
Let's hope it's a while yet.
Okay, that was facetious, I'm assuming. So, all in favor of the motion? Thank you very much. And next is Rcmp Appreciation Day. Is that you, Mr. Romanko?
Yes, finally through all these complex planning
I know,
reports.
now you get an
that are
easy one.
Multiple options and multiple this and that. So we have the attached letter was received from the Vernon Committee Chair for the RCMP Day. The letter explains that the RCMP were created on February 1st, 1920, and as of now, only Manitoba designates February 1st as RCMP Appreciation Day. February 1st, 2020 is the 100th anniversary of the RCMP, and a group of citizens in Vernon have formed a committee to acknowledge February 1st each year as a day of honor and recognize the men and women of the RCMP for their dedication and service. The committee is asking for a letter of support from Council to present to the Legislative Assembly of BC to acknowledge February 1st as RCMP Appreciation Day. The City of Vernon has passed a motion, and a copy of their letter is attached to this report. In terms of implication, from a community perspective, it's a recognition of RCMP members. There's no organizational, no budget implications, and no real significant dates except as soon as possible, I guess. In terms of options, one, the Council authorized the Mayor on behalf of Council to provide a letter of support to the RCMP Day Committee of Vernon for their efforts to move forward with a petition signed by the Canadian citizens will be directed to the province of BC and the Government of Canada to ultimately acknowledge February 1st as Royal Canadian Mounted Police Day. Two, that the letter be received and filed. And staff is recommending option number one.
Thank you. Anybody like to? Councillor Bennett?
I'll move option number one.
Yeah, second.
Councillor King is seconding that. Anybody want to speak to this? Okay, all in favor. Thank you very much.
I like that.
Yeah, that was an easier one. Okay, and next we have Work BC Employment Services Center, Mr. Romanko.
Thank you. Attached, please find a notice of employers informing local employers of improved service of the Work BC Center. The notice provides information that a new contractor has been selected and that the local office will be in Oliver. The previous contractor had an office in Osoyoos. Local employers benefited from having a local office in Osoyoos. There is a need to receive clarity from the provincial government and the Maximus contractor on how services to Osoyoos are being improved with the closure of the Osoyoos office. In terms of implications, community, without clarification of services, it appears that Osoyoos employers will have to travel to Oliver to receive services. This centralization of services is another decrease of local provincial government services and appears to be a decrease in services, not an increase of services as being promoted. No organizational impacts, no budget impacts, and no significant dates. In terms of options, three options are presented for Council. One, Council directs the administration to write a letter to the minister responsible for Work BC services for the mayor's signature, which expresses a concern as to the promotion of increased services when in fact WorkSafe BC offices in Osoyoos is being centralized in Oliver, and the services of the Work BC office in Osoyoos will be reopened by a new contractor. Two, Council identify another action to be taken, and three, Council directed no action to be taken. In terms of recommendation, the administration recommends option number one. There was no community consultation on the closure of the Osoyoos Work BC office and no indication that services to Osoyoos community are improving.
Thank you. Councillor Bennett.
I'd like to move option one and just speak to it. I know.
Hang on, let's second it. Go ahead, Councillor Bennett.
I know it's more than people just going there and applying for a job. A lot of people got to go there. They have to go back, do follow-ups, do courses. So it's not just a place you go look on the board. And so having an Oliver for a lot of these people who are looking for those jobs, they just don't have the transportation or the ways to get there.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? No? I think this is a no-brainer too. So all in favor of sending this letter? Thank you very much. You're in favor of that, Councillor?
Oh, yes.
King?
For sure.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Okay, yeah, I was horrified when Work BC emailed us and said that the office here was closing down, so not happy about that. Okay, next is no notice of motion. It would be, next is the general net payroll, Sun Bowl Arena financial accounts. And that is to report on expenditures to March the 18th, 2019. General cash requirements of $238,435.59, and Sun Bowl cash requirements of $11,188.43, and those would be done by consensus. And net payroll accounts of $73,865.46, and that is for information. No committee reports. Oh, should we do? Oh, sorry, I need to do the building report. And I see that it's been a little quieter than usual. I think that may have had something to do with the weather. We've had a foundation for the home building stores put in, and an engineered beam put in one residence. So a total of $101,801 for this month. Total to date in 2019 was $1,575,500. So I'm assuming that was what was that one? Total to date in 2018. Why was there so much? I think that was the total of 2018, wasn't it?
No, that's
Might have been the Richter properties.
No, there were a number of residential properties developed early, and well, it's when the building permits go out. So I'm told that there's a lot of activity in the office. It's just that the building permits haven't been issued yet.
The building permits haven't gone out yet.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So you're working on that, are you?
If I say I'm busy over there, then I get this from the CO. Really?
That's okay.
We're a bit busy.
We appreciate it. Now it's spring. I'm sure that things are going to pick up pretty quickly. So, do we need to receive that report, Mrs. Hilson? Yes, okay. So, could we have a motion, please, to receive that? Thank you, Councillor Rhodes, Councillor Bennett, all in favor. And next is the CAO report.
Thank you, Mayor McCordoff. Just a few of the activities of the administration over the last couple of weeks. Starting first in community services, the Volunteer Appreciation event is about 2 weeks away, and approximately 200 people have RSVP'd already, so it should be a good breakfast. The spring break activities will start this week, and the registration for spring programs has started, and things are going very strong in that area. And the Desert Classic Tournament, hockey tournament, will start the week of March 29th. In terms of corporate services, they've dealt with 2 insurance claims, one involving the roof damage to our hall during the windstorm in early February. It's been busy on the human resources side with recruitment for the fire chief, senior accounting clerk, planning and community development admin support, bylaw enforcement supervisor, seasonal facilities caretaker, public works students, and the community services students. There was a meeting held of the emergency executive meeting on March 14th to discuss various emergency planning issues, and discussions with BC Transit on the regionalization of the transit system continue. In terms of planning and development, staff are very busy with building permits and development inquiries. The developer for property at 9110 and 20 Main Street, the Osoyoos property, Oasis property, are looking to get started this spring, and the DP will be coming forward in council in early spring. And the request for proposal for the OCP will be on council's agenda for April 1st. In terms of public works, some tenders were issued for the line painting contract, $27,000, and that was approved. Also for the sanitary inspection, that was approved for $24,500. Long-range motion sensors and alarm were installed at the sanitary landfill on February 25th. No break-ins have occurred since that has been done. There was a heavy snowfall on March 7th, which was dealt with expediently, and there's also the quarterly traffic safety committee was held on March 13th. The following project tender went out for bid, and that was the Cottonwood Park retaining wall repairs. In terms of myself, the CAO, I attended the hospital meeting, emergency management committee meeting, responded to fire chief recruitment inquiries, met with the union national representatives, met with the Airport Society over airport operations, attended the Clean Air Transportation Forum, met with the lawn bowling over lease, made boundary extension inquiries with the province, and completed the business plan and council report. And that's my report for today. Thank you.
Thank you. So it sounds like he's busier than you.
That's what I thought.
I'm take a fifth on that one.
Okay, could we have a motion to accept the CAO report, please? Councillor Rhodes, Councillor Bennett, all in favor. Thank you. Now we'll go to council reports. And I should point out, and I'm sorry I didn't do this at the beginning of the meeting, that Councillor Harvey is not here. He happens to be over in Sweden at the moment, so he wasn't even able to phone in. So that's why there's just the four of us here. So, Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Member Kordoff. I'm going to have to take a pass. Most of the committees that I've been assigned to, and the work is ongoing, and regrettably we have not met this year yet. So I'll have more to report in future council meetings.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Councillor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Met with the Airport Society along with Mr. Romanko. Attended the open house at the art gallery. If you like art or you don't like art, I suggest you go there. It's something to behold, the paint that they do there, the work they do there. Attended the South Okanagan Chamber's Business After Business at Interior Savings. Very well received with the mayor and council. Mr. Bennett was also there. Attended the Desert Park AGM, and I'm happy to say they actually have a full slate of 11 new board members, which is kind of exciting. There was actually a big turnout there. And with that, I also attended the Adams hockey tournament this past weekend, and a big thank you has to go out to the amount of time the volunteers and the parents put in for the kids. And there was teams all the way from Spokane, Tri-Cities, north to Williams Lake, Juan de Fuca down on the island. And to our regret, I think we only come second, but second is better than third. So I'll leave it at that.
Pretty good. Thank you very much.
That's been going on for 45 years in this town.
And the team from Quesnel has been here every year for 45 years. They continue to come every year. Isn't that amazing? Yeah. Councillor Bennett.
It was nice we give them some sunshine.
Yeah.
I made up for a few feuds. So
Okay.
Yeah, you can use your time.
We did the March 6th South Okanagan Similkameen County Community Foundation housing session was canceled because there was only 6 people who were going to come, so they're going to reschedule that. March 8th, we met with Councillor King and Sarah doing the community grant service grants. March 8th, met Barry at the BC Active Transportation Strategy. Basically, it was a lot of community leaders, more talk about more active cycling, funding, road closures, signage. So basically, after you're there and you see what Barry's doing here, he's doing a great job. He's getting a lot of the money that Vancouver doesn't get. March 11th, met with Representative Richard Canning, MP, mayors of Penticton, Oliver, Summerland, Sayo Regional District, Penticton Chamber of Commerce, and the senior city staff in Penticton, with the Director of Government Relations of Air Canada regarding reducing the 4 flights out of Penticton and changing them to 2 flights, and changing the flights to 9:30 in the morning and 7 at night, which everybody's quite upset about because a lot of people fly safe in the regional district in Penticton, and they can fly down, go to Victoria for the day, and fly back on the later flight. And the fellow that was there is Serge Gorbell, and he's the Director of Government Relations with Air Canada, so he just happened to know Richard Canning. So he came to the meeting. He wasn't the guy that does the schedule. Once he starts speaking and he tells you about how Air Canada is not, it's a separate company totally from Jazz, and they're also a separate company from Air Canada Express, and how they share pilots and planes and some are leased. You can't just change the schedule to say, oh, they don't like that, we'll just change it back to here. Once it's been changed, it's a huge thing. So the town of, or the city of Penticton, Air Canada used the thing that 95% of people traveling out of Penticton do for connecting flights in Vancouver, and 5% were using it for business. So as long as they were there by 10:30 in the morning, they could connect their flights, and 7 o'clock at night was okay for them to come home. And everybody said, no, that's not going to work because there's way more people, and so we didn't agree with that 95%, because that 95% is done on 66 airports across Canada, so it doesn't really. So what's happening is if you go and go to www.shapeyourcitypenticton.ca, there's a survey on there, and it's for the whole South Okanagan. You check on and ask your name, your address, where you're from, Carameas, Osoyoos, Penticton. You check it off, how many times you fly, why do you fly, when do you fly. Then he's going to have that back to Air Canada by April 16th or April 6th. And Serge is going to take that to an Air Canada meeting he's going to. He's not the guy that makes the decision, but it's really important everybody fills that out, because if we don't get that in and the people can't catch that, and if they can't change the flight to say 8 o'clock instead of 9:30 and change it later at night, and people start going to Kelowna, then that starts to kill Penticton, which we're trying to keep that airport there. So it's really important we really fight for it. So hopefully by then we'll hear back from Penticton, we'll have some better results. Then I went to the chamber with Mr. King and the mayor, and also with Gina and Dawn were there, which is great. I went to a school board meeting on March 13th, and it was a 2-hour meeting, and I was reviewing their 136-page document focusing on funding model review. So what they've done is the province have got 7 secretary-treasurers, or secretary-treasurers, not the right word?
Some of them are superintendents.
And superintendents, and they're an independent board, and they went to all the school boards and school districts, and they had 60 submissions plus another 100 independent submissions, where people said, here's how funding should be done to the school boards, because some school boards fund by the amount of students, some do by the number of classes, some do by the number of First Nations or special ed classes. So the funding is all over the place. So they're trying to, so that report came in, and now the school district just received it. Now they're taking that with a bunch of questions attached to it to try to earmark it. And I think in the end of it all, they'll come back trying to, it's going to be really hard because every school district's diverse and unique. And I think in the end, Rob Zandy, said it probably the best, and it's still the same amount of money. It's just one major change is going to be one big hit, and all the school districts are going to be scrambling trying to get their stuff in order, or they're going to do it over 3 or 4 years, and they're hoping to do a 3-year budget instead of a 1-year budget, so that if something goes a little sideways, they can tip the ship, and they're not just all of a sudden sunk like what happened to us with this thing. So is it, when we think we're pretty busy, that's a pretty big. And I did give a copy to Sue, and she has one.
Yeah, I have a copy here. Well, and thank you. So anybody who says that being a counselor is 2 days a month should probably look at your list of things that you've done already. And all of us, I mean, we're all very busy because we try and attend as many things as possible. So So a lot of the things that have been mentioned, I've already I've been involved with too. But a couple of things I wanted to say is that I did fill out the survey for the Air Canada one for Penticton. That is available. I believe it's on our town website. And anybody who wants to, who uses the airport, and I do quite often because I have family in Vancouver, so I use it, and I was happy to do that. I just want to say one more thing about the Adam Fiesta tournament. We were there at the opening ceremonies the other day. Every team, and there was 15 teams, every team was that as they skated onto the ice, their names were called, and the coaches. So it was a really nice way to do this. 45 years they've been doing it. And when I was in Vancouver last weekend, a bunch of people were having dinner, and one of my daughter's friends said to me, oh yeah, I always used to come up and play in the Adam Fiesta tournament. He said, as a matter of fact, I started young, so I was there 4 years in a row. He was from Langley, and he said it was the highlight of my spring break every year for the 4 years that he was here. So that was pretty nice to hear that it enjoyed it. And not only I want to say not only thank you to the parents and the coaches and the teams who come out, but also the organizing committee of the South Okanagan minor hockey, and obviously the staff at both the Oliver Arena and the Asuyas or Sun Bowl Arena. They put in long hours, and everybody seems to be happy, and so I think it's well done to all of them, and we certainly hope it will continue on. I was at the Watermark the other day for the Desert Center presentation. They do 4 of them at this time of year, and this one was on seeds. I was amazed. They have places like Fort Knox where they keep seeds so that they can, they don't wipe out a species or something. And I think during the war there was one over in the Middle East that was literally obliterated by a bomb, and that just caused no end of problem. I had no idea that they were that important. But anyway, it was very interesting talk. And the next one, the last one in the series, is this coming Saturday at Watermark, and it's on amphibians, I think. Anyway, they're well worth it. They're very, very well done. And I'm pleased to announce that I've taken down the snowflakes on my window in my office, which Mrs. Hilson told me to do. And actually, it didn't. What happened was that we got snow right away, but it has worked out well because we now have spring. And I just, not to put a damper on it, but I'm worried that everything's going to melt too quickly. So make sure you look after your property and make sure that you clear away things from around your house, and that you take the leaves out of the drains, because we don't know what's going to happen. Anyway, yes, Mr. Romanko.
If I could just provide some, as the Global TV says, breaking news. I just got an email from Mr. Museum, Matt Hassan, and he wanted council to know that the museum has been awarded a $250,000 capital grant from the gaming grant. So
that's terrific.
We wanted council to know that.
Oh, good. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so I think we need to have a motion, please, to adjourn the meeting.
Go ahead.
We're done. Councillor King, Councillor Bennett, all in favor. Thank you, everyone.